This podcast is about patterns of behaviour and recognising that you have patterns of behaviour. Recently, there's been individuals I have been counselling and helping and supporting in regards to relationships breaking down, friendships breaking down, and generally people being extremely unhappy and sitting back and reflecting upon why that particular relationship didn't work and why that particular friendship perhaps is broken down and what they could do about it or how they can claim it back. There are times in people's lives where sadly some relationships, some friendships have ended, and we have to allow ourselves to accept that and grieve for that. But we also have to look back and think, what made it break down in the first place? Also, perhaps that friendship and relationship, depending on your perspective of life, how you look at things, sometimes you have to realise that it wasn't meant to be. That particular friendship or relationship was in your phase of life, in your term of life, for however long, because sometimes it's there, depending on your perspective, obviously, to teach you a particular lesson. And until you've gained that perspective and until you've gained that outlook, you're not going to be able to transition. Now, some individuals, when it comes to relationships or friendships, they keep choosing the same partner. Now, I don't mean necessarily the same individual, but I mean that when they go from one particular partner to another, they are still identifying the same traits, the same characteristics, the same personality, the same outlook. And subconsciously, they don't see it, okay? They don't see that they've gone from the same person that they've left and that they're no longer with, the person that had made them extremely unhappy, to yet another individual who is more or less practically the same. And it can take a while before those particular issues that they had prior, in prior relationships, prior scenarios, for it to come to the surface again. And the individual struggles to come to terms with the fact that, hold on a minute, I'm in the same boat as I was before. Why is this happening to me again? Why does this keep occurring? Why do I keep choosing? These might be phrases that other people say to them. Why are you choosing the same partner again and again and again? And expecting different outcomes, expecting different reactions, expecting different scenarios to occur. And some individuals have this concept still of happy ever after. There is no such thing. How about being content? How about being happy? How about being grateful for what you have rather than searching and looking for things that are out of our realm or out of our hands? And sometimes that's not easy to recognise, Patterns of behaviour are very, very difficult to let go of. And first you have to be aware of what it is that you are doing, What patterns of behaviour are you actually repeating over and over and over again? Is it trust issues? Is it, values? Is it outlooks on life? Is it the fact that, you're choosing someone who ideally is not really a match? You think they are because they provide you with specific things at that time. That could be material wealth, it could be comfort, it could be support, it could be someone who offers you stability. But actually, all of those things are conditional on you also applying and being in a particular way. It might be that they expect you to be subservient rather than equal. The partner might expect you to be less vocal and you're a very vocal person. It could be that you're expected to be providing more of your income into that relationship than the other person is, and so on and so on and so on. And we don't recognise those particular, like I said, those patterns until we step back and until that relationship unfortunately breaks down. And the reason that it breaks down and can't be repaired is because you come to the reality that this is no longer working anymore. This is no longer making me happy anymore. And obviously something has to be done about that. Now, in some cases, we step back when that relationship breaks or the friendship breaks. We step back, we grieve, we try to move on. Sometimes we try to repair that relationship and friendship. Sometimes we can't. And we get ourselves in a situation where we are trying to move forward. And again, in that person's mind, in that person's head, they put themselves again in a scenario where they are repeating the patterns of behaviour within 6 months, 7 months. Sometimes you have to really look at your deepest, darkest aspects of yourself and think, what is it about me that keeps attracting this type of person in my life? Am I sending, vibes out that I'm needy? Am I sending vibes out that I need someone to control me, to dictate to me, to overpower me? Is this what I think I'm worthy of? Because certainly you're not. You're worth more. But this particular person that has these patterns of behaviour doesn't necessarily see through that. It's a blur. It's very, very, discoloured when they're looking at these aspects. When they see a new partner, they're extremely happy. They're sort of bowled over. They're happy and they're content. But they don't understand that, they are giving away parts of themselves, parts of their character, part of their freedom, part of their joy, because they are reliant on the other individual to make them happy. Like I said, until you sort of work on your own individual patterns of behaviour, it could be that you feel you need lots and lots of love from that partner. You want them to shower you with gifts, you want them to bend over backwards to do things for you, when the reality is that love starts with you. I've done this previously on a different podcast before, but until you work on yourself and your issues and you work on breaking those patterns of behaviour, it could be that you feel invincible. So you will do everything you can to ensure that the other person needs you. Okay? So the neediness is sort of like a codependency, and it's sort of like the other individual depends upon you to be doing everything that they physically or materialistically can't. And you sort of give yourself an anchor that this person is going to need you. This person wants you. But the sad reality is that it doesn't work like that. Okay? So when you are looking at your issues of behaviour, you need to take a real step back. Switch off telecommunications, switch off social media, switch off television, any noise, any background. And I'm not asking you to go sit in a cave, but I'm asking you to think and really reflect upon your life and really look at yourself and think, what is it about me that keeps making these mistakes where this type of person keeps coming into my life? They're there for a lesson. I appreciate that. But obviously, if you're wanting a relationship with continuity and you're wanting a relationship that lasts a lot longer than this particular relationship has done, then something has to change and something has to give. And that change starts with you. It changes with what you are going to accept in the future. It starts with what you think you are worthy of right now and what you're worthy of in the future. You might have particular boundaries that this person in the future can't, come across. It might be that you need to start saying the word no instead of always saying the word yes, or the other way around, and meet someone in the middle. But a lot of it starts with the journey of self and the journey of love and the journey of, these are the things I'm not going to tolerate anymore. These are the things in my past friendships, relationships that broke down. These are the boundaries that kept breaking. And from now on, I'm going to make sure that I personally overcome that. I find someone that is willing to accept me for who I am, and that person has to, respect my boundaries, has to respect that this is the place that I come from, and this is the place that I am working towards. And, sometimes you have to accept that you don't need another individual, that it's okay also to be by yourself. I think that's another issue that quite a lot of individuals have. They struggle to be by themselves. They struggle to be alone, and they struggle to be with their own thoughts and their own feelings. And a lot of the times when they tolerate certain individuals, it's because they fill in that gap. They fill in the gap of being lonely. They fill in the gap of being needy. Whatever your situation is, reflect, stand back, look at why you are repeating those patterns like we've discussed already. look at ways you could go forward. Do you need to be in a particular position where perhaps you are financially supporting yourself from now on? You are helping yourself go forward in life, and you're helping yourself be stable and have an income, support yourself financially, for example, so that you're not attracting people that are necessarily going to just be a bit of a red flag or several red flags and take advantage. You can go forward, you can see what you are worth, you can focus on the things that matter, you can focus on what is important, and the main thing is you're the one that's important, you're the one that should be looked after, and it starts with yourself. So hopefully when you start putting these things into practice, you can hopefully become more self-reliant and more independent, and you're not having to codepend on other individuals either for your happiness or for your well-being or for your financial security. I appreciate in some scenarios it's not always easy to do that financially. Sometimes we have to lean on friends and family. I totally get that we're all in different predicaments. But what I'm saying is, don't be in a situation where you're relying on everything on another person. It's called not putting your eggs all in one basket, as we say. So when you hopefully move forward from that, you can start breaking through, hopefully, the patterns of behaviour that you've started. And when we do that, we strive to move forward. We strive to work on ourselves. And when we do that, we are empowering ourselves. We are loving ourselves more. And we are caring for ourselves more than we probably would have done in prior relationships. And it's a good, fresh start. It allows you to have your eyes open. But the main thing is that when a future potential partner, if that's what you're looking for and you think you're ready, comes along, you recognise those traits in that individual, And I guess some of us have goggles on where our vision is distorted, or we have cataracts, which isn't physical cataracts, but a metaphorical cataracts is there that doesn't allow us to see what's plainly in front of us. And, we have to be in a position where we can recognise that, no, we don't want this partnership because we can see the same traits, the same patterns, the same concepts in that individual as was in my prior relationship. And, sometimes life does test you like that. Are you going to say no, or are you going to continue with that cycle? And that's for us to distinguish, and that's for us to learn from, and to wake up and say, no, I'm not. I'm going to move forward from this. I'm going to give myself self-love. I'm going to give myself time out, and I'm going to allow myself to heal, and I'm going to allow myself to be strong, and I'm going to allow myself to be looked after by me, not by anyone else, by me. And like I said, this is not an easy thing to do. It takes years of practice. It takes years of working at. It doesn't happen overnight. And, for those of us that are in patterns like this, where we've just unfortunately broken up from a relationship, or the relationship hasn't gone how we wanted it to, we can sort of work on those issues for now. When hopefully you start addressing self-love and self-concept and, start helping yourself become more independent and more grounded, you'll see quite a lot of benefits from that. It's going to be hard initially. It's going to be, if you've been one of those people that's codependent on others, especially for finances or stuff like that, you will find it quite hard to be dependent on you, to be working for you. But actually it's quite satisfying too. So it's just a matter of you being alert and aware that you can get through this situation, you can get through this scenario. And, there will be people around you, of course there will be, that will offer support. And it's also making sure that you use that support within a means. You're not completely dependent upon it 3,000%, because if you do that, you're defeating the object. Either way, when you hopefully can work on these issues, you can strive to go forward. You can move forward with your life, and you can start putting things into perspective that you need to work on. And hopefully you can be happy again, okay? And like I said, this is something that doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. I'm sure we'll do several more podcasts related to this sort of topic, but this is just the, stepping stones, I guess, on how we can do that and how we can move forward, okay? So if anyone is out there struggling and can relate to that, then please make sure you look after yourself, strive to go forward and help yourself to come out of those patterns of behaviour. Good luck, take care and remember to use self-love. Bye for now. Thank you for listening.